Hi, this is Tolec for the Andromeda Council and Transformational Shift events. Today is Monday, August the 28th, 2017. And I am blessed to have with me today some wonderful people who are going to be joining me, Adana, Alexandra Metters, and others in Australia in a couple of months. And today I have with me Maree Batchelor, David Still, Dan Bugitti, Adana of Star Ancestry, and myself, Tolec. And at this point, I would just like to welcome you all and thank you for your patience as I've brought this technology together. How are you?
Great. Thanks, Tolec. Thanks for that warm introduction. Lovely to be here and to get to connect with everybody. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, we've been having a very interesting chat in the meantime. These people are very interesting to me. I'm really enjoying talking to them. So,
yeah.
Thanks for having us, Tolec.
You're very welcome. Since all of you know your work better than I do, I'm going to let each of you introduce yourselves and then provide a backdrop for people who may not have heard about you before, maybe just a brief bio. Maybe what you did in your earlier life, your earlier careers, and what you're doing now. So since there are two ladies in the group, I'll let Maree go first and then Adana.
Right. Thanks, Tolec. Well, my story is that I have come from a mainstream medical background. I trained as a doctor and worked as a family physician for many years, and then had an extraordinary awakening experience that happened in 2008. Unfortunately, it was activated by the tragic death of my 4-year-old son, William. And his death came about from a car accident that an underage driver that couldn't control the car just ploughed into him on a fence one sunny winter's afternoon. And you could imagine that sent me into a complete and utter shock, grief, trauma, and all of the above of the horrendous human suffering that I went through. But throughout all of that, from even the beginning, I started to experience what I would say was a connection to off-world energies, experiences that were opening me up to an understanding that there was way more going on this planet than I had ever understood, and that I was ever capable of understanding up to that point. I started to get light coming to me with a sort of a healing energy. I was getting downloads, understandings, being guided to meditate and open more fully to the mystical side of all religions. And then it led me to look at science and technology, archaeology, anthropology, astrology, astronomy, and realize that all of these things are really connected in a way that we are not taught in our lower 3D dimensions. And my awakening then led me to a temple in India. And it was in November 2014 that I had a profound experience where I was literally zapped on the head and started to embody incredible frequencies that literally rewired me. And I experienced a feeling of being in cosmic consciousness for probably 12 months. That was, both amazingly enjoyable for the the healing and the sensation of being guided and protected, but was also extremely uncomfortable for the human me that was literally stripping off programs and triggers and my old identity. And I went through some 3D experiences of being separated from my husband and children, being labelled as being mad, being asked to see psychiatrist and all of those sorts of things. But I knew from the very beginning that this was not anything to do with going mad. This was actually extraordinary and was about me waking up and starting to embody frequencies to completely transform the way I saw the world and how I was to treat people and patients and start waking people up. So I've transformed, obviously, my work. I've left mainstream medicine. And now what I do is bring in frequencies from the higher dimensions. I embody those and actually use them to release people from programming and technology, the programs from their past life karma, from their family lineage, from vows, contracts, spells and curses that they've picked up along the way, and release them from the conditioning of the matrix. And then I've noticed that my work is even further unfolding by this ability to release people from the AI control. I'm releasing plasma technology devices, nanotechnology, altering DNA frequencies, and actually releasing the blocks to the DNA so people can be activated to embody higher frequencies for themselves, to get them back to the natural state of peace, love, joy, well-being, self-healing as their birthright, as their sovereignty. And, you know, extraordinary journey, and it continues. And I wake up to more and more and understanding more and more about what it is that I need to be doing here. Some of the things that are quite incredible as I embody these frequencies, I actually shape shift and holographically change often for the people on Skype or in person, which gives them a visceral and a visual experience that this work is real, that there is something going on, and they awaken not only physically, mentally, but get to actually see the nature of the realities that we're in here. So that's who I am, that's what I do, and obviously lots more to say about it, but that's an introduction of where I'm at.
Maree, thank you. Would it be accurate to say that you are very busy?
I have become extraordinarily busy. I'm being asked to present at various conferences, holding various workshops, where I'm imparting information and bringing in the frequencies and really doing DNA activations. I'm calling myself a multidimensional physician, and as more and more people wake up, they're realizing that this form of healing is really powerful, and it's about getting people to align with their higher dimensional self, bring in the frequencies and transform themselves, to release themselves not only from you know, disease processes, but the psychological traumas and anxiety, depressions, fears, the self-concerns that keep us, you know, anchored into the lower dimension. So, yeah, lots of one-on-one Skype sessions and more and more small to large events taking place, which is brilliant. And this is what my work is all about.
Wow, that's fantastic. Are you also able to, my words may not be correct, but I think you'll get the essence of what I'm trying to say. Are you also able to, within the processes that you use, the modalities, release the energy of what's been residual in somebody who's been in constant emotional abuse for years, or in, you know, codependent relationships, et cetera, et cetera?
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's stagnant energies. There's also entity attachment. There's, you know, parasitic feeds going on. You know, parasitic thought forms, getting people to ruminate and keep those energies blocked. And as I peel those technologies away from people, they get to release, and some release quite dramatically. You know, I've had people fall on the floor on all fours, almost, you know, giving birth to release these energies. I've had some people feeling like they're going to vomit from the energy release. You know, it can be that extreme. I must say that doesn't happen with lots of people, and I don't want to put people off that it's going to be, you know, a traumatic experience. But that's what I have witnessed in some people, which shows us how locked it is in the physicality and in our mental and emotional bodies. So absolutely, you know, the energies come in. I get understandings and knowings of where to go for people. I get understandings of some of the things that they've been through, some of the things that they're not even aware of. And we certainly work with their higher dimensional selves, connected back to source energy. It's always benevolent. It's always for their highest good and the highest good for humanity. And it's about waking people up so we can shift this paradigm that we live in, the density of this matrix that really needs restructuring if we're going to survive and upgrade as a species and keep the planet, you know, sustainable.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, or I didn't pick that up. The audio was interfered with.
Okay, I just said thank you very much, and I'm going to turn the table now over to Adana and let her introduce herself and share with all of you and the people listening what she's about and when she started this work, and in greater depth about her telepathy and what her experiences are all about.
Thank you, Tolec. My journey began when I was a young child. My grandmother passed away, and she came back to be my telepathic teacher. I was born with nerve damage to both of my ears, so it was easier for me to hear with my inner spiritual ears to talk to the people in the other dimensions, in the higher dimensional worlds. This went on for about 7 years until my mother told me one day that she finally let Mama go. At that point, my grandmother disappeared and went on to do her work in the heavens. And therefore, I put aside my telepathic duty to learn about Earth life, going to college and getting married and having kids. At the advent of the age 32, I sat at the front window one day. It was at nighttime, around about 11 p.m. at night. I just looked out the window in the rainy, stormy night, and I asked the Creator, show me the wonders of the heavens. And as soon as my question of words came out of my mouth, a cigar-shaped craft materialized in front of my house. By the way, I grew up on the aviation business growing up on Hobby Airport, so I'm pretty sure I know about identifiable airplanes that is out there. So I know that this is not of Earth. And that changed my life that night. And it created for me a pulling to awaken to my mission at hand. It also reawakened me to a time period of the age of 7 when I was picked up by a circular craft that happened to be manned by the Pleiadian commander. And they told me at that time period that I have a mission to do and that I was going to forget for a time until I became an adult. They promised they would wake me up at the age of 32, which is exactly what happened. But it changed the dynamics of my belief systems. It opened wide my telepathic communication. I began to have dreams, visions, premonitions, all of the things that we were told that we would develop into when we become a higher dimensional being. I've also been involved with the late Einstein grid of Mother Earth. I was taught to build a double terminator generator, crystal staff, which happened to be made out of copper, in order to clear off the ley lines to bring about the change of a higher dimensional Earth. And from there, I began to come out and began to speak after 30 years of being silent last year. The transformational shift event, and told my story at that particular time in the United States. Then a star ancestry was born in November of 2016, thanks to Tolec. He brought that idea up to me, and I said, sure, I'll be glad to do it. But I had not realized how many people on this planet who is wanting to know where they came from, what star system they came from, what did they do on that planet, why are they here on Earth. And therefore, I began to give the reports, and up to date, there's 507 people have requested the reports, and most of them were joyous, happy, feel like they're no longer alone on this planet, that they are reconnected with their star families of the heavens. My work continues on this path of bringing the reunion between the people of Earth and the people of the stars, because we are getting ready to come back into the galactic community, rejoining with our people from many, many worlds, many, many star systems out there. Thank you for having me on, Tolec. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And Donna is a very humble person. What she told you just scratches the surface. She's accurate. I believe the number is 507 or 508 people who've requested literally star lineage, star ancestry reports from her. I think 95% of them are premium reports where the people get a chance to really comprehend who am I, what star system did I come from, what vibratory rate. And the feedback, the stories that I've heard from these people have been absolutely amazing. People resoundingly are amazed at how similar Adana's reports are to what these people are feeling and experiencing. And all she collects in terms of information is their date of birth, their place of birth, and their name. That's it. And then she talks to Azar, who's the chief medical officer on the Andromeda Council. And she happens to have all of, this is almost hard to believe, but the capacity that they have is amazing in terms of technology in the higher dimensions. And she has all of the soul records of any soul fractal that has incarnated here on Earth. And so Adana and Azar simply have conversations about who is who and where have they come from and what's their mission on Earth. And so I know that Adana is humble about this, but the work is absolutely amazing. I've watched her transform many, many lives because of her work. So that's just some of what's going on with her. And I'm going to get off the floor right now and pass the microphone over to David Still. David, you are becoming quite the celebrity these days with this third book that you're finishing. You want to introduce yourself to people?
Yeah, thanks, Tolec. And by the way, I have a report from Adana, which has been an amazing help in my journey as well, giving me my own galactic connections. I've had a bit of a change of life, I guess. I used to be an investment banker. I was actually an executive director of Goldman Sachs, and I gave that up in 2004 to bring my kids up with my wife. And what I saw after a few years of, enjoying myself immensely is just how unhappy people were in the area that I lived in. There were a high youth suicide rate, for example, even though it was an affluent and beautiful community. And what I realized is that our youth, felt they were disconnected, or they thought they were disconnected from nature, and didn't feel hope, felt cut off from the natural abundance of life. And anyway, during this period of learning, everything that I needed came to me. So, for example, I was doing free energy consulting those technologies. I was on the board of Nassim Harameyn's New Physics Science Foundation. When I was thinking about connecting with nature and talking to trees, I would suddenly bump into an Indigenous elder who would give me the authentic lessons about that. And so I was always shown what I needed, and I eventually worked out that I was being taught as part of my journey. And as I've always been someone who can communicate things very simply, and my inspiration was to write a trilogy which I've done over the last 5 years, about a group of Australian teenagers starting in 2012, waking up and then going on to sort of show how we can possibly change the human consciousness. Originally, the book series was aimed at giving people the truth. I was really disappointed when I saw the lies in the media, all the corporate control and so forth. And so I wanted to give people the truth, but then I quickly evolved from that into just empowering our youth to see their own uniqueness and their own magnificence, and realize that, that they are here, and, to be the best they can be, and enjoy creating life on Earth. And ultimately, as more and more people do that, my story is really about bringing the Earth into galactic resonance. And I call it faction because it's a fiction story, but it talks about real life issues like fracking and water fluoridation and so forth. And it has 100 research links in the book, which is somewhat of a study guide for our young ones. And someone just wrote on Amazon that it should replace all school textbooks, which I was quite pleased about. So basically, I'm in the US at the moment, just finalising the editing on the third book in the series, and it's been very, very well received. And just on this galactic theme, I was recently told by someone that there's no way I could have done this myself, which I guess was a compliment. So, I'm very enthusiastic about the series and the various spin-off projects that are already starting to emerge.
David, thanks for sharing that bit about you. I know that we share some common experiences in the banking world, and there are probably some stories we couldn't tell in this interview. I think what's more relevant is that, at least for people listening right now, for anyone considering coming to the conference that I'm hosting in September in Sedona, David Still from Australia will be speaking at that Sedona conference the same weekend as the autumnal equinox, since being held at the Sedona Community Center. So you'll get a chance to meet David in person if you're coming to that conference. I'd like to segue now to a man who I'm honored and happy to call my friend. This man and his wife, Cherie, were in the audience at my Tucson conference last October. And a wonderful man, great sense of humor, great intellect, also very humble, but he stood up and he shared with the audience that he and Cherie had left Australia for the first time to come to my conference in October. And I just felt really honored. And so, quite honestly, we wouldn't be having this conversation today without Dan Bugitti. So Dan, thank you so much for coming to the States and for inviting us down under for this coming October. The floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. Mate, it was an absolute pleasure to come to that conference. It was my first time out of Australia to go to the US, or to anywhere actually, and to meet you and Adonna, and to do the drive up to Sedona with you guys was an absolute pleasure. And I know I'm blessed, and I know Cherie's blessed that we got in contact with you guys over there. So thank you very much. That's a start. My story, I'm a little bit like the rest of the guests on today, like Maree and David. I have a degree in environmental science, environmental management and environmental health. Worked in local government for a long time as a health officer and as the waste manager, looking after your normal waste recycling products. And then just before the conference in October last year in America, I had an awakening and realised that I had to change. And after that I did change, and basically went to America, got into spirituality, and got out of council. And now what I do is I actually make a thing we call it cremation keepsakes, where I put cremation ashes into glass orbs. I melt glass, and I'm a glass blower now. I went and learned how to glass blow and put cremation ashes into glass orbs and pendants and stuff like that, so people can wear their loved ones or their pets or whatever forever. And instead of having an urn of ashes on your mantelpiece, you've got a lovely glass orb marble vortex. So that's a very, very condensed, short story of how I got to meet Tolec and my journey over the last 12 months.
Dan, there's also more to you than that. Would you mind sharing your Awakening event with the people who are listening? You told us a pretty interesting story heading up I-10 when we were in the car.
Yeah, sure. So I was going through a very rough stage in my life as far as mental illness. I'd been diagnosed with depression, ADD, and all these other alphabet bloody things that psychologists and psychiatrists come up with, and I didn't realise what was going on. I never really fit in at school, all that type of thing. I was a bit of a loner, only child, no brothers or sisters. Then one day I was watching a bit of YouTube and seen a lady that was doing an interview. She was the Austrian Minister of Defence, and she was talking about meditation and raising your vibration, and something struck a chord with me. So I looked up meditation and other type of tutorial videos on YouTube and other documentaries about meditation and raising your frequency, because I was really intrigued and didn't know what the hell it was all about. And done a few meditations and whatnot, and found it was really helpful. And then I seen one that said basically meditate outside, connect with the earth. And I said, okay, right. Well, I live in the bush. I live on a 15-acre property on the mid-north coast of New South Wales, and right next to 800 hectares of bush. So yeah, I'll do that. I went and done that. Meditated for 20 minutes. Got up and literally was violently ill for 5 to 10 minutes. Could not stop. Hate to say it, but vomiting. I couldn't stop, to the point where I had to go and lay down, and literally after I laid down, 5 minutes later, I just had a complete feeling of bliss, love, nothing I've ever felt before. It was just an amazing feeling for me, being from my previous life to what had happened. It was just, I had just a feeling of unconditional love for the whole planet and everything on it. And also, as a side effect, as a physical side effect, you know how you walk out in the sun in a cold morning and you get that vibration, that fuzzy feeling go up through your body? I had that literally non-stop for 4 weeks after it. And so, yeah, that was an amazing experience, and that's what brought me to, I heard a couple of Tolec's interviews and said, that's it, I've got to go and meet this guy. And, yeah, I bought a ticket and jumped on a plane.
Well, I can tell all of you who are participating in this conversation, as well as the people that are going to listen to this, when Dan and I sat outside one of the afternoons of the conference, I was looking at a man whose eyes were absolutely crystal clear, and whose eyes were resonating with, if you will, the vibration frequency of love and joy, unequivocally. I'm like, wow, this guy must have come from a pretty interesting place, because, I could see that you were in a happy place in your life. I mean, there was no mistake about it at all.
Absolutely, yeah. And to come from a place where literally being suicidal to and feeling no self-worth at all, to just by doing a simple meditation outside, to knowing just to be a completely different person from 180-degree turnaround is yeah. I can't recommend meditating enough to people that are depressed or that feel that they're no longer needed or wanted.
Wow. Yeah, it's what I find very, very interesting in terms of synchronicity is that all of us, including me, have all had unique pivotal events which changed our lives. And I'm probably wired very much like David Still. Interestingly enough, our birthdays are in the same month. We're very close in age. I was not an investment banker. I was an international banker toward the end of my career in operations. And I can't begin to tell you how much corruption that I experienced and what I saw. Just those experiences in my banking years, I could write a book just on what I interacted with and the way that we were treated, because we were a small private bank, and we weren't part of the system, and they weren't going to let us in. We had the same issue. I worked for a global asset management firm, an alternative private one, but I did that as well, and we had the same issues. The powers that be were not going to let us into their private card game. And with all the corruption and the lying that I saw going on, I got out, interestingly enough, just a few months right after my own time travel trips from what was then summer of 1993 to a place in western Kentucky and West Virginia. And I've told that story many times, but suffice it to say that they're all of us, we have these life-changing events that turn us into different people. And I can't help but be compelled to try to share the insight that I've gained in subsequent years. I left the suit, coat, and tie international banking world in March of 2011. I have not turned back. I've done other things. It hasn't been easy, but it's been really, really rewarding. That there's I think a reason why we all get together, and maybe this is a good platform to start subsequent conversations to our introductions. There's a reason why we start conversations like this with people who have been through the same kind of events or similar ones, and that is that we're changed people, and we see life and live life differently. Maree, I know yours is unique because of the loss of your son, and I can't even imagine what that was like to go through for you. But can you share with us kind of how your life was different in a good way after you came through that experience, and how it changed you? I know you addressed it initially, but
well, it was, from a human perspective, extremely difficult navigating such profound grief and loss. But I was, from the beginning, absolutely supported. And I think that that's what was, so incredible for me, was to have this understanding very early on that we are not just these mind bodies living a finite time on this planet, that we are so much more than that, that we are these infinite beings, and that these are literally costumes for the energy to come down onto the planet to have this experience.
Very true.
And it was this perspective that was continuously helping me and soothe me. And what was interesting, I was being directed by people around me, go and see a doctor, go and see a psychologist, try and help with some of this grief. But what was interesting was what I found mainstream had to offer was not touching me at all. Antidepressants and sleeping tablets were really not going to work, or counseling from a 3D perspective, because it was the higher perspective, and what I now know is the truth, that was able to support and soothe me and help me heal, so that I could, go on and actually help others that were going through, grief and loss and other, difficult challenges in their life. And so, it was such an interesting time to be going through, having the human awareness, having that medical background, having those very 3D understandings, and then getting such incredible support, love, and really healing messages and energies just coming to me on, throughout the whole period. So, you know, it really just was, I was journeying through to finding more and more of the truth of who we are and what this life is really supposed to be about. And, you know, so it was the gift that came from this tragedy. And what was interesting is my son, William, who was 4, and, you know, when he died, but he had been saying to me many times prior to his death, I love you, Mum, more than you. I love you. And I couldn't make sense of that in my unawakened 3D mind. But it was afterwards that I realized he was talking about the real me, the higher me, the truth, the you, the capital U. It was the higher self. So he was giving me a hint before his death that because of his deep love for me, he wanted me to know who I really am. And he's been, you know, a guide and a help through this transition. And, you know, so I saw all along the way messages and just gained understandings and energetically transformed to be able to, embody this truth and help others. And that's what this is about, the mission to help others transform, you know, past their depression, past their anxiety, you know, help them alleviate their physical issues, connect them with their truth, get them to really have a background state of peace and joy so that they're not so troubled, that fear isn't running them, and that they're not plugging into the lower dimensions where there are, you know, so many controlling forces and so much corruption and so much that is not for our highest good. So, you know, really the gift in his death has been incredible. And, you know, I can sit with that now with, you know, deep gratitude for everything that I've gone through. Although, you know, of course, from a human level, you know, I still have, you know, the grief and the loss.
Yeah, of course.
But, you know, it's definitely the perspective of how I hold it and the depth of knowing of who we really are. It's quite incredible.
And that's the concept that we're talking about is transformation. And this experience of yours, it sounds like, transformed you not only once, but 2 or 3 times. Because I expect that you're tapping into gifts and abilities that you never used before as an MD, and that you're now using as a way to perceive what's going on with people. Is that accurate to say that you're like highly more sensitive to what other people are going through?
Look, I mean, I was always a sensitive person, but, you know, I didn't have any skills or abilities to help navigate them out of a 3D perspective. And, you know, I had been conditioned through medical training that, you know, there was, you know, people would come in with symptoms and you would just find that I guess it really was a Band-Aid approach to help them. Whereas now my understanding is we need to go, you know, deeply into what has been affecting a person and actually unplug them, release them, dissolve things that are actually in the way of them connecting to their natural state of self-healing and well-being. And, you know, this just isn't something that's available through a 3D understanding and a 3D medical education. And, you know, waking up and understanding that really what we are using, and most doctors come from a good place, but because of their training, they don't recognize that some of the things that they're using to help people are actually just blocking them, putting them further asleep, and actually at times being extremely damaging to, you know, DNA and to, you know, to a person's well-being. So, you know, it really, my eyes were opened just beyond, you know, normal comprehension to what is possible. And of course, I understood that this was going on in Indigenous societies, and, you know, it was at the height of the mysticism of religions, that this wasn't new. This was as ancient as can be, but it is just something that's not promoted. And of course not, because it actually doesn't fund those, you know, few that run the world finances and, right, you know, big pharma. So it, you know, it all started to make sense. The pieces of the puzzle just kept dropping in, and you know, it all started to make sense. And what's incredible is the timing of it all. And as we know, we are shifting and humanity is waking up, and we've got the new children coming with already activated DNA with their skills and abilities of healing water and having off-world education and so forth. The children that Mary Rodwell writes about and researches with. And we know this transformation is happening. And I think, isn't it interesting that, you know, the death of William and then my further activation in the temple in India have really allowed me to transform, so I'm ready to help others that are awakening and going through the process. So, you know, we can see from a higher perspective how this all fits together. And, you know, the world is ready. The world is ready to wake up. And our job now is to really, you know, stand in our sovereign right, own this awakening and help others.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. David, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, yeah, that's what I'm seeing. It really is a time of magic now. And so anybody listening to this who has an inkling, you know, to attend, I would highly recommend it, because that's, you know, probably the reason that you're listening to it. And the synchronicities that are happening are just off the charts. There's a character in my book series, a lawyer, who's actually a nice lawyer who likes to help nature and wants to give legal rights to nature. And he's a lot like a guy called Danny Sheehan, who's the lead lawyer on the Standing Rock situation, you know, who's protecting the rights of the people. And so I set an intention to meet Danny. I wanted to give him my book series and you know, just congratulate him for all his wonderful work that he does. And the day after I set that intention, I was in a bookstore. I started talking to all these 18-year-old kids about metaphysics. And one of the kids, I only had one copy of my book, and one of the kids really lit up. I saw him. He was really, you know, I was getting a signal. So I gave the book to him, and I asked him his name, which was Thomas, which coincidentally was the same name as the lawyer in my book, Tommy. And I told him about Tommy, and he said, "Wow, that sounds like my brother's boss." And guess who his brother's boss was? His brother worked for Danny Sheehan. So, you know, that sort of synchronicity is happening to me, you know, every single day. And what my message has been to the young ones really is that everything in this kind of matrix we live in is contrary to the laws of nature and the laws of the universe. Our medical system that Maree just mentioned, we try and use a single switch to deal with the symptom rather than recognizing that nature has created this amazing self-correcting, self-balancing system. And our education system, for example, tries to homogenize all these unique, amazing children rather than, you know, getting them to know themselves and honor, you know, their own particular talents. And my message to them really is that there are a lot of things that can be done that are free, you know, to help them on this journey. Meditation, like Dan just mentioned, gratitude, you know, getting up in the morning and writing a list of things they're grateful for will magnetize more things that they're grateful for. Breathing properly, you know, full breathing. I mean, all of these things are very simple but, you know, in some ways they don't know that they don't know them. So, you know, it's just a matter of trying to get them the right information and just to get people outside of this concept of, you know, money being the god of our society, and just to bring humanity back into galactic resonance. And what I see, a big part of that is going to be a mass awakening that is generational. So, you know, a lot of older people are awakening too, and I know a lot of older people. The oldest reader of my book series has been 87 years old, and she said that this is how we used to live, you know, when I was young. And yeah, but really it's about the young ones and them, you know, stepping into their potential and their joy.
David, Adana, and I were with Alexandra Meadows last weekend over in the San Diego area. We had spoken on Saturday, and we were in the car speaking with her. And I'll keep confidentiality, except to say that she was telling us the story of a young woman, I want to say late teens. And Alexandra said, why, to this young woman, she said, why is your generation so unhappy? You know, you have all this technology, et cetera, et cetera. And it was a loaded question.
Yep.
The young woman, and I'm going to paraphrase, said, we're angry at what's happened to this world. We're angry at what you've done to this world. The you being our generation and older, because
Yep.
of the control mechanisms that are in place, the programming that happens by the media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that was very insightful for me. That was the first time had ever heard anybody say, we as a generation are angry at what you've done. And so they've unplugged. Not the collective they, but of course some of them have unplugged. And the dysfunctional behaviors include all the things that they're doing to take it out on other people because they're not happy. So it's, you know, I've been to conferences in the past, and now I'm speaking and producing them, and we often don't get a lot of younger people. And I'm hoping, David, that you'll be able to, because of your books, you'll be able to reach younger people and get some younger people at our conferences. So
yeah, I think my development paused when I was a teenager or something. So I see the world through the eyes of a teenager, and I'm very much about building networks. I have a program called Empowered Youth, and yeah, I just want to build networks for the young ones so they can. I'm not telling them what to do. I'm just giving them the tools to work out their truth and their joy.
Yeah.
And to communicate and, you know, be with other similar people who are on the same journey.
Yeah. You know, I talk about this from time to time, but I sincerely believe it's really valuable. I moved recently. I'm back here in the Southwest. I'm about 20 minutes south of Sedona. It's incredible country. I'm high on a mesa with just pure air. Just the ability to live out in nature and inhale and breathe at the same vibratory level as the trees and the birds and whatever other little animals are out here. Being out in nature in and of itself is vibrationally just an incredible elixir for people. I would advocate to anyone who's trying to change their life to spend more time out in nature in any shape or fashion. And I'd like to throw this topic out to anybody who wants to comment.
I'd absolutely agree with that, Tolec. Another thing would be to instead of just walking through the bush or just walking in nature, stop and feel nature too, in a personal sense. Feel the trees, smell the trees, smell the leaves, smell the eucalyptus, or smell the bush in its beauty and glory, instead of just observing it. You know, feel in the moment in the bush, and it's a great feeling. Also, I'd like to touch on dietary. Sorry, you there?
Still here.
Yeah.
Sorry. On dietary requirements. So we, I feel we're eating a lot more processed foods and whatnot, instead of having a more organic diet these days. I own an organic. We grow all our food and vegetables on our property here. We've done organic farming certificates and whatnot, and we've been recently just changing our diet with just increased vegetables, less meat. We're eating meat maybe once a week, twice a week. And just the improvement in well-being just from changing your diet in that small fashion is well worth it, you know, and you save a bucket load of money by growing your own vegetables too. So,
that's a very good point, Dan. That's something in relation to my own transformation. When I gave up investment banking through a very fluke circumstance, I was basically shown that I needed to go on a 10-day juice fast with colonics and so forth, and the effect on my energy field was unbelievable. And suddenly I was getting these messages like, don't invest in any companies that harm the planet. And I was like, who said that?
Yeah.
And I was actually going and having a coffee, or I would have a peppermint tea with some of my ex-investment banking rivals and hugging them. And they were just, what's going on with David? But, that it was that simple. It caused a massive, massive change in my energy.
Yeah. From when I had my awakening last July, August, I instantly felt no need to eat meat. It was like, why am I eating meat? What am I doing this for? It? And I started to eat more and more vegetables out of our gardens, because we've always grown vegetables since we've been up here, since we moved out of Sydney, and we just expanded the gardens to double fold, and just the feeling that you get from eating good, wholesome food that's not modified in any way. Hybridized, yeah, fine. That's a different story, but it's not genetically modified. Sourcing heirloom variety seeds and produce really does help your energy field and help your overall well-being of a person. You feel better, your energy's better, you feel happier. Eating less meat for me personally has definitely made me feel better as far as gastrointestinal wise. I just couldn't recommend eating more wholesome food in general.
Hey, Maree, how do you feel about this conversation as an MD?
Well, I'm listening to all of this, and I think this is absolutely, these are all the things we need to do to assist us and help us become empowered and connect to these frequencies and these energies that are available for us to transition into well-being and good health. Clearly, being in nature, unplugging from the electronics, getting away from the electromagnetic frequencies is so beneficial to our health. And eating organically as much as we can, and avoiding the processed, the genetically modified foods, because they are damaging to our health. And these are all things that we need to do. And the more you wake up, the more you're just guided to stay away from that doesn't resonate with you. So you make choices now from a different place with things that are going to support this evolution for yourself. So, look, I agree with all of it, absolutely. And I think, people don't need to be in fear about it or overly concerned and become, dogmatic about anything. It becomes a very simple transition. As the more you awaken, the simpler things become, and things just drop away. Thoughts and ideas and understandings just fall away that are no longer serving you, and you find yourself just making dietary changes without it's not a big effort. I
can totally agree with that, Maree. Another thing that happened to me was I was a big fast food eater before my awakening. Out in management, driving around, checking out stuff all the time, and not having the time to prepare, and so just grabbing like McDonald's and stuff like that. Since my awakening, I've eaten McDonald's once. So you're just not. It's not for me. It's not a frequency or a vibration that I can connect with anymore.
Absolutely. And isn't it interesting that when we look at the whole picture of the lifestyle of the 3D matrix, the way that we, the stress and the the pressure on everybody, and the time that people then just think, oh, I'll quickly grab some sort of fast food junk, and it's all part of the programming. This is all done to keep us in density, to prevent us from further awakening. And it's really unhooking bit by bit, so that we're not in that density, and that we're making choices from a free will. And I think until we start to activate who we really are, people have to understand there is not a lot of free will until you start to bring in these frequencies and actually unhook from the control mechanisms that are just, hurting people to make wrong choices.
From a tangential perspective, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to know the answer to this question. I'm going to ask it to all of you. How many of you watch commercial television? And there's a reason why I'm asking this question.
You know, from my perspective, you wake up and you turn that off. You just don't want a bar of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, you know, it just becomes so obvious that that is just not where you need to have your attention, and you recognize that it is, you recognize it for what it is. And
yeah, I even go further than that, Maree. I can't stand to be near it. It's a dissonant vibration that, you know, spins me out. It's been a really big problem for me. Unfortunately, I'm quite, you know, on a different trajectory from my family. So it's a big irony, because I'm trying to help teenagers and my own teenagers aren't, you know, they're sort of on it, and wife, unfortunately, they're much more into that sort of thing. So I can't be there in that energy.
Well, you can feel the frequencies. You know, it's detrimental in many ways, on many levels. You know, the frequencies that are emitted, the messages, the brainwashing, you know, it's just multi levels.
The whole concept of relaxing in front of the television is a total misnomer, because your cells do anything but relax when you're sitting in front of a television.
Absolutely. We made a rule not so long ago that I don't watch morning television, like ABC or any of the commercial stations in the morning, because it gets me too cranky. So,
yeah.
and you know what? It's actually worse than that. I'm going to share a story from 6, 8, 10, 12 months ago, when I was still spending a lot of time taking care of my now 86-year-old mom. And here's how bad it is in South Florida. And yes, there are a lot of people that are in our age group, and they're still working, but there are a lot of retirees in their 70s and 80s. So here's how bad it is. The national stations, including some of the cable ones, it would insult your intelligence to see how much proactive programming there is to try to convince older people that they are sick and broken, and that they have gastroenteritis, or they have shaking leg disease, or they have all sorts of ailments. They're trying to sell the ailments.
Yeah, they create the problem to sell the solution.
Problem, reaction, solution.
Yeah, the pharmaceuticals are actually selling the sickness while they're selling their alleged cure. It's awful, and the worst part is the frequency of the selling it's absurd. I only know about this because with an 86-year-old mom, like, she's got to turn on her news, her CBS News or whatever, and horrific.
It was, when I was over there, Tolec, I was amazed to see that we don't have the amount of pharmaceutical advertisement on television, that on free to air, that you guys do. Every second ad was a pharmaceutical company ad. It was insane.
And it says side effects include death.
Yeah.
Right. And
it's bizarre.
The side effects include tremors, depression, if you want to kill yourself, and on and on and on. I'm like,
yeah, and death.
Yeah.
And death, yeah.
People will still, you know, take these things. So really, what is this saying? I mean, the level of control, manipulation, suppression is just unbelievable. I mean, the more you wake up, the more you just go, this is seriously insane. The level of manipulation and control. And, you know, we just need to keep waking up. We need to be aware of all of this, and then just not be in that same frequencies. Just rise above it, bring in the frequencies, and get on our missions and wake as many people up and get this transformation happening, so that we can actually break down all these structures and this conditioning that's just hurting people. It's incredible.
Maree, are you finding that people are asking you these kinds of questions when you're speaking at conferences? Is the level of increased awareness prompting questions like this?
Look, absolutely. And what I'm finding is I'm being guided to speak more and more about it. Initially, it was like, you know, be careful, don't sort of bring in too much of the sort of remote control and manipulation. But in the last few months, I have been guided to really tell it as it is. And people are extremely receptive and open and understanding. And what I'm finding fantastic is I'm able to hold a group, bring in this level of information, but the frequencies will still stay very clean and very high, which means that the knowledge is being imparted and received with not the fear. It's really empowering, and it's giving people the awareness, but lifting them above it, which is precisely what I want to do, because we need to be aware. We need to discuss these things so that we are educating the populations to what actually is going on, and we need a way to be able to do it that does not incite the fear. And you know, certainly I'm noticing that it is just being so much, you know, it's just being very well received, and people are getting it. And I think people are learning there is no authority, that they need to go within and really start relying on a discernment and an inner knowing and a frequency resonance as they come across information and people, and really start making decisions for their highest good. And trusting themselves more and more. And I'm seeing a lot of that. And I'm seeing the youth, I'm seeing the teenagers that are more, they're sponges to this information and very receptive, and actually experiencing viscerally, you know, energetic shifts very easily. And, you know, I've been working with some people in their late 20s, you know, absolutely motivated, knowing and aware and awake, and just ready to step into action. So from my perspective, things are moving in a very positive direction, although I'm extremely aware that they are ramping up the control and the manipulation in response to the awakening movement.
Yeah. David, as you traveled across the states, even in ad hoc conversations, are these kinds of topics being raised?
Yeah, I mean, people are very, very awake mostly, but in some socioeconomic areas, you know, coinciding with lots of fast food outlets and so on, I'm just looking at people getting this message, just their food's killing them, you know. And so there's it's this whole thing about humanity's kind of going two ways, you know. There's more density to some degree, but then there's incredibly awake people as well.
Yeah, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Donna for a moment. Donna, in all of the people that come to you that request star ancestry reports, are any of them asking you about what changes that they can make in their lives to become more self-realized, to maybe change where they've been to living a more fulfilling life? And to some degree, getting rid of any programs if they're aware of them. Are you coming across any of these topics?
There was a few people in the world, I would say 28 plus countries. Some of them have reported back to me their feedbacks, and they also, as Tolec was asking the question, yes, they have asked me questions as to how could they improve the quality of life that they live in, how can they raise their vibratory rate, what can they do to enlighten other people. And I basically told them to go within. Their heart is connected to the Creator. Use their own discernment in the messages. Get confirmation. Be more sensitive to what they hear, what they eat, what they put in their bodies, what they do in their daily lives. Some of them are going through a massive transition in terms of relocation, concerned about the well-being of their families who are not awakened. What could they do for them? And I basically said to follow your own inner guidance, wrap up the loose ends of their lives and connection with their families, love them where they're at, because everybody is on a different level of belief systems. And therefore, what I have learned from the Andromeda Council and Azar, who is responsible for the soul essence records, that they cannot interfere with their lives. It's against the universal law. It's because of the free will in operation. They always have a plan B, C, D if plan A doesn't work out. So our guys are constantly moving with the flow with us, because we could say yes one minute, no the next. So in light of this, they're always working with us to move us into the position where we need to be. However, there are many of them are in the year 2017. I have discovered that a lot of them are relocating to different areas in the world. It's all of a sudden they wake up, but they have to wrap up the loose ends first, because they need to take care of their responsibilities where they're at before they can move forward into their missions. The bottom line is, love is the most important thing in the universe. When you have love, then everything else falls into place. When we have unconditional love for our humanity and to allow them to be where they're at, then one day they will evolve too. We will not all evolve at one time. Everybody has their own level of raising their vibrations at different time periods. But we will eventually evolve. Mother Earth will become a higher dimensional world. And this is what my understanding of what I have received, not only from my guys, but also from Earth's people who have written back to me in this respect.
Donna, do you think the guides, our spirit guides, have issues dealing with the amount of mind control that happens on the planet?
Dan asked if our spirit guides are able to discern, or if they recognize that people are dealing with the programs and the mind control of so many people on the planet. How do they reconcile the fact that so many people are getting programmed and controlled?
Okay, well, here is what I've learned from Azar. First of all, it has to do with the pre-incarnation agreement as to what they would experience on Earth, whether they experienced the control factors or the programming factors, or any of the things that is part of their learning experiences on the planet. They are aware of the program factors that's going on. It depends on the timetables of each individual. If the person said, okay, I'm done, I've had enough, I want out of this matrix system, I want out of this program control factor, then that's when the guys step up and work with them by using the different frequency patterns, the different energy patterns, to eliminate programming of what they have been under, not only in this lifetime, but in centuries past. So we're talking about all of the cellular memories that we have brought into this lifetime that has to be transformed. So it's a lot of work on the part of Azar and her team, not only with the physical body, but also with the emotional, mental bodies that we have here, as well as the spiritual aspect of our soul essence. So you take all of that together, it's work. But some of them have succeeded in removing the programming factor. And, I don't know what the word comes to me. I'm having trouble with the words, but basically they restart the system within their body.
Reboot.
Yes, thank you.
So when someone basically decides that they've had enough of this 3D matrix, they want out, they've had enough of the controlling, the programming and all of that type of thing, is that a conscious and subconscious decision, or is it one or the other, or is it both combined?
Yeah, what Dan asked is, when somebody gets to this point, is it a conscious decision, a subconscious decision? Is it combined?
Oh boy. It depends on the person. Very good question, Dan. It can happen either way. It can happen, the conscious decision say, okay guys, I've had enough. I'm awakened, I'm aware, I want to be rebooted. Then they'll take the action. If it's a subconscious level, it will go through the dream state and bringing into the physical state. And it could also be both. So that's what I receive from Azar. It just depends on each person at the level of awareness he or she is at.
Maree, I bet you would run into a number of facets of exactly what we're discussing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm listening to this answer and loving it. I think it's both. I think that there is, that both conscious and subconscious things are involved to a certain point. I'm just becoming more and more aware, though, that some of that, the conscious decision to wake up is really that's being so hammered. And interesting, a lot of people are contacting me that are waking up, that are aware, that have been on a path for some time, saying of late they feel like something's really blocking them, that something is really stepping in, shadowing them in some way, or puppeteering them, or, putting something over them that they can't feel as much of their light or their frequency. And so, they've sort of woken up to the level that they understand that something is preventing them further from moving in their embodiment. And certainly that's where, bringing in more frequency and the work that I do actually helps shift these things off. And I'm finding incredible things from, plasma technology devices to clamps, to insectoids, to nanotech that's blocking people. So you could be, consciously wanting more, but not able to access it because this is being done to you. So,
am I understanding you? Am I understanding you to say that these are, if you will, both? I hate this word, but I'll go here. AI, so artificial. Attachments, and then also energetic?
Absolutely. I think there's a component of inorganic and organic things that are puppeteering and manipulating us. I think that we have, other entities, other beings that are non-benevolent that don't want this awakening, so that they can come in on a fear-based program and hover around and start puppeteering people to not be making decisions for their highest good, or to cause some chaos or create further karmic experiences. But there is also, in my mind, or my understanding is there's this inorganic type of plasma and technology that actually interweaves with the very essence of a person and actually mimics them to the point that a person doesn't even recognize that it's pretending to be them. So I've even gone into a session and we've sort of put the energies in, had literal mechanical devices pop out of a person's heart chakra that stand up and veil as the person and says, you'll never get rid of me, you need me. And we've had to blast these things away with light and actually open up the heart that way. Or I've had people who have said halfway through a session, oh, I don't want to continue. And I'll say, that's not you speaking. That's actually this inorganic technology that knows its numbers up and needs to be released. And then we've gone further and activated and freed the person from that. So, you know, this inorganic substance of different varieties is definitely having a play here. And also the electromagnetic frequencies. I have no doubt that they switch on sort of frequencies at various times in various communities that create chaos and fear. And people know this, that they're just driving along and feeling okay, and then all of a sudden starting to feel anxious or a bit depressed or you know, concerned, and nothing has changed. It's just an activation of some what I call parasitic thought forms. And so we need to be, you know, shielding against all of this, and the way to do that is to embody more of the frequencies and to really understand that we do not want to consent to any of this, that we no longer consent to any of the manipulation. And that's a very powerful statement, to switch it off before you get brought into the drama or the story and further, you know, enmesh yourself into the very thing that they want you to, the path that they want you to take down into fear and chaos, by just saying, I no longer consent.
Right. You can't have a fire if there's no fuel.
Yeah.
Another thing, Maree, with that, what you're saying about being targeted or having parasitic thought forms, is being able to recognise that when it happens. It's definitely not easy to do. I'm sure it happens to me sometimes, but being able to recognise it when it does happen, so that you can immediately, you know, either adjust your frequency or whatever you need to do to just to be aware that this isn't you that's thinking this thing. This isn't.
And this is what I tell people, that all fear-based thought forms and emotions are not your true self. Your true self is actually, you know, one of sort of lightness, joy, ease, and grace and well-being. It doesn't have this self-concern that gets perpetuated in this lower dimension. So when you're being, you know, when you're having such fear-based thoughts or emotions, it's not you. And to really recognize that this has been done to you, this has been programmed into you, or this has been, you know, technology to try and, you know, take you out of your light. So really just by recognizing that and not feeding into it is so effective.
And these programs, I know what I'm saying here, but these programs will continue to run unless people shut them down, release them, transmute them, whatever words you want to use that are accurate. But you're very accurate in your assessment. Somebody consciously has to say, I don't want to do this anymore, or needs to reach out for help and say, I need some help. Would you please get rid of these programs for me?
Absolutely. And I think by, you know, spending time with people that have these understandings at a high frequency, you're actually forming a form of protection for yourself as well, because we're assisting each other. Everybody's capable of activating each other by having conversations, by staying out of the fear and the chaos. We actually are assisting one another. And, you know, the old sort of phone a friend and actually get a high frequency person to assist you when you are feeling hammered, and somebody who's not going to feed the victim or the ego programming, and actually say, hey, I'm here, I'm in high frequency, you need to come back up here and join me, and do it compassionately. But this is all part of it, that we are assisting each other, because, you know, to me, it's spiritual hygiene. It's not just do it once and it's done with some of these things that are continuously bombarding us. It's about actually, you know, keeping up spiritual hygiene and having tools and ways of managing that.
And do you think, Maree, that the more you obviously practice spiritual hygiene in as far as meditation, connecting with your higher self, grounding, helps the energies come in a lot easier and helps you adjust to them a lot easier as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, it then helps you have greater discernment so that you actually start to feel when the energies are going off, so that you sort of make some statements to yourself or energetically become very aware of when you're in a situation or in a conversation that's going to activate fear, or there's some lower dimensional energies and activities that are going on that are trying to pull you down. So you become very discerning, and
Yep.
and don't bite back with a sort of ego-based justification or ego-driven dramatic response when you're being provoked. And notice that other people get puppeteered to come in and actually take you off your frequency. And I believe that some of that is going on as well, that, it's not just even your own personal experiences, but it's other people coming in to actually affect you as well.
Yeah, including your family, I believe.
Oh, without a doubt.
Mm.
And, understanding that, that the judgment that people who are not awake and aware like to throw at us to keep pulling us back by the ankles to bring us back down into the lower dimension is part of the setup. That, that we do have to understand with compassion and love that they can't understand who we are, but actually not fall back into their, their programs and ways of control.
And do you? I don't know about you, but I find you guys have obviously been to uni and done all the degrees and whatnot, and I find the more I speak to people that have been through the tertiary education system, the less they're open to spirituality. Whereas when I talk to people that are, your plumber, your carpenter, your whatever, your mechanic, they're much more open to this type of stuff than what tertiary educated people are.
Well, totally. That's part of the system, I think. The more the longer you are in the education system, the more, brainwashing, brain control, manipulation goes on.
Yeah.
And empowerment's bad for business as well. And
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the system's designed to make good order followers.
Well, the system's designed on a business plan, really.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that's interesting about the system, and I'm sure Tolec would say this as well in the corporate world, is sociopaths generally rise to the top because often they will put their head down and look away when somebody is mistreated, whereas the people who, say, hang on a minute, what's going on here? This is not fair. They get a black mark next to their name. And I definitely saw that in my situation. I was lucky just because I happened to be good at what I did, but generally I was the exception. And yeah, sociopaths rule.
And or if you're on the left-hand side of things, like a union delegate or something like that, they'll promote you into a management position, so you've got a conflict of interest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's what happened to me.
I left the bank. I left an international depository trust bank because I did an audit. It was part of my responsibilities, and we were supposed to report to the board. The CEO would not sign off. And I said, if you don't do this, we're going to be in non-compliance. He said, I'm not doing it. We're not going to submit it to the board. I said, okay. So 2 days later, he had my resignation letter on his desk because I wasn't going down for it. I wasn't going to be complicit in his non-compliance. I wasn't going to be complicit in the bank's non-compliance. But, before we head any further down this field, I want to redirect to Adana. She's got a really interesting question. It's probably more directed toward Maree, but Adana, go ahead and ask. And there's a specific reason why she's going to ask, but go ahead.
Maree, I didn't even think about asking this question because of my own life experience as being classified as a deaf person, but with a high power hearing aids, I could hear. But what about the autism children, hearing impaired children, other special needs children and adults? Are they blocked or buffered from the program factor?
Yeah, look, it's a great question, and I think that they are. And again, I think that there's an organic and an inorganic group of, say autistic children, or children with attention deficit or other disorders. I think there's an organic group that are coming onto the planet and are highly intelligent and actually being protected from being mind controlled, manipulated, and fitting into a system. And this is, of course, why people find them so difficult for perhaps in a schooling system, and diagnose them and drug them so that they fit in. But I also believe that we've got manipulation going on a genetic level, where the DNA that is evolving is being blocked through vaccine programs, the genetic modified food, the chemtrails, etc., that is bringing in a group of children that are really being damaged and traumatized and shut down so that they don't evolve sufficiently. And that's my feeling. So I think that we've got sort of both groups going on here.
Right. And can I ask a question of Adona, perhaps? Why, if people are constantly being interfered with, why do extraterrestrials say they can't become involved because of the law of free will, when these people are being interfered with against their own free will? Why doesn't that nullify it and create a potential to interfere? I very much don't understand that.
Okay. When many times when Adana is in conversation with people, she's partially listening, but most.
I understand. Yeah, it's for anyone. It's a question for anyone. But
Yeah, no. But we're on the right track here. But she also reads lips, because she can't read lips right now. I'll repeat the question. David's asking, what about the perspective of our higher dimensional, if you will, brothers and sisters, who are watching a situation with any individual who's being programmed and being messed with, right? And if they're being programmed and being messed with by either AI sources or organic sources, why can't our higher dimensional brothers and sisters step in to correct that being messed around with actions, those actions that are being taken? As an example, and I have an answer, but I'm going to withhold mine until Adana finishes. One method of programming for anyone, whether they're challenged or not, is media, programming, television. Not only pharmaceuticals, it's
absolutely,
the hospital, the healthcare industry, the education industry, the religions. So why can't, here's the simple question, why can't our ET brethren step in when we're getting messed with artificially?
Our free will is getting messed with.
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
This requires some in-depth explanation, because Azar and our commander, brother of the Andromeda Council named by us, still are teaming up together to answer this question. First of all, they have to go back in time to catch the people that started this to begin with. They had to go back in time, and I'm asking them right now mentally, how far back are you have to go? And they said about 3 centuries back.
Wow.
To get to the people who are responsible for the programming factor that's coming online. I thought initially that they would come back all the way back to the beginning of Earth's history, but that's not what they said. They went back 3 centuries. And when the AI filtration, if you will, started within the underground places where they had kept the equipment, if you will, all of the advanced technology in the caves.
The bottom of ocean floors.
Bottom of the ocean floors, wherever they are stationed. They, as I'm hearing it internally, they run these machines 24/7. And so when they run these machines 24/7, as you well know, people are getting bombarded energetically, mentally, emotionally. So they have to send their team back to try to eliminate those type of equipment. And it's not going to happen overnight, they said. It's too far deep in terms of what is happening today. So it's going to it's requiring numbers of teams to take care of this problem. And according to the commander, he said that the readouts of the planet right now, as we know it today, is going down. The readings used to be at 100%. Now it has come down. And I asked him how far down, and he said between 50 to 60%. So it is coming down. And so we have to give them a chance, a time to take care of the problem. They also have to recognize the fact that these people that are programmed, unfortunately, they do follow the protocols of free will. And Azar has told me time and time again, she's shown me different departments within the biosphere, hospital biospheres, that have to deal with the massive damage, thank you,
Yeah.
damage that has caused to our people here today. And she said it's a mess. It really is a mess. And she said that they have to go through each step, just like the doctors do today. They have to figure out, okay, where they're at with the problem with their bodies. It's the same thing what Asa had to do. Okay, what level of physical, emotional, mental, spiritual attributes that the person he or she has that has been damaged. And then from there, they have to take them through series of steps, like what Maree has talked about, the frequencies, the energy changes, the counseling, the whole 9 yards. And it's going to take them time to go through these processes with humanity. And they stop to think about how many people we have on this planet right now. A lot of people. So that's why you have so many hospital biospheres that are stationed within our solar system to be able to handle all of the incoming soul essences that are going through the transformation in their lives. That's the best answer I can give to you at this moment.
That's an excellent answer. Thank you, Adona. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and there's, if I may, there's a part B to this answer, and this is where some of my expertise comes in. I happen to be doing a lot of work back in 2011 and 12 when the people of the Procyon star system planet Cana had identified, targeted, destroyed, but first evacuated a number of Draco and Hydra reptilian bases, undersea bases. There were 2 underground ones in the hills west of Washington, D.C. and Virginia, and then one outside of Denver, Colorado, that were destroyed. And this information is relevant. I know sometimes it's hard to believe because it is so otherworldly, but the sad reality is these undersea bases all had incredible technology that were beaming disruptive, agitating, confusing sonic frequencies. And one of the bases that was destroyed was in the Gulf of Aden, pointed specifically at the Middle East. Another base was off the coast of China. And so, although 15 of these reptilian-operated undersea bases were destroyed, and there were thousands of reptilians that were exited off planet, literally transported off planet. And even though those technologies that were in those undersea bases and underground bases got destroyed, there are still humans that have access to similar technology, and they're running it. So we've taken, again, I know this is almost an unbelievable issue, but the people of the Procyon star system, planet Cana, in fact, did get involved, did get rid of a long-term problem, and got rid of 15 undersea bases with all sorts of technology that was causing problems and had been causing problems for years. And so you take care of, if you will, what I call the cabal-run military operational rule. That sends people into chaos, because then you have the factions and the fractions of groups that are trying to retain some semblance of power and control. And,
yeah, that's what's happening now, yeah.
Right, and they're still using this technology. So you not only had the reptilian technology that was running, but they'd shared their technology with their, if you will, human lieutenants that were and continue to run these programs. So there can be intervention. The piece that Adana was addressing is all of these people on planet that have been controlled and manipulated and agitated, and that are just in really heightened states of emotional distress, if you will. And then they leave their bodies. To use an Earth phrase, they die.
Yep.
Well, there's Azar and her people in with the hospital medical ships. They are using, and Donna, correct me if I'm wrong, but light, sound technologies, and different frequencies, different attenuations of frequencies to bring into center, bring into balance the energetic etheric body that animates the human organic body. So you have all these people dying, leaving planet, getting help, even as they leave. So we do have people on planet who have issues. And as Adana first stated, a lot of those people are getting to address some of those issues in the dream state. Those people tend to move slower. That's all they can handle. Some people are more like, if you will, us, people who attend conferences, who are waking up, they're becoming wide awake, and they're saying, Maree, how do we deal with this kind of stuff? And there are other people like Maree using quantum techniques and quantum technologies and AQQH, and there's a number of modalities being used to help address etheric issues that have been brought forward into people's bodies in this lifetime. And they're coming awake and they're saying, I'm not healthy. I don't feel right. I'm out of balance. So it's a multi-pronged issue that needs to be addressed at a variety of levels, including by our space brothers and sisters, when they can, and to the degree to which they can help. I don't know if that helped broaden the answer, but
that's an excellent answer. Thank you. I was supposed to have another meeting, another call. I'm not sure how long you want to go for, but we've been going for 2.5 hours.
Then it's definitely time to wrap.
Yeah, if that's okay. I'm absolutely fascinated. I love everything everyone has said, and I can't wait to meet everyone in person. But yeah, I've got someone waiting on, that's all.
Yeah, it's okay. David, before you go, what I'd like to do is thank all of you, each and every one of you, Maree Batchelor, David Still, Dan Bugitti, Adana. All of us will be speaking at either the Forster conference the weekend of October the 7th through the 8th, or the Tugun conference, South Gold Coast on the east coast of Australia, also in October, the weekend of, I think, the 22nd through the 24th, basically 2 months from now. And so for anyone from the land down under who lives in Australia that would like to attend, please feel free to go to the Andromeda Council website or go to the Transformational Shift Events website, both the conferences page and the tickets page. You can purchase tickets, but it's people like Maree and David and Dan and Adana and I and many others, including Julie Capri, Alexandra Metters from Galactic Connections, that we're all taking these issues, putting them on the table for open discussion. And each of us bring a different perspective. And we'll also get together collaboratively at the end of each day in a panel discussion, much like we're having right now. So thank you for all of you for participating. Thank you individually for having your patience with me as I got the technology together on my end. And thank you everyone for listening. So many blessings to you all. And again, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Tolec's been wonderful. Fantastic. And looking forward so much to the conferences. They're going to be fantastic.
I'm excited to come to your country and join you. It will be my first time out of the U.S. into Australia. So we're beaming. We can't wait to get there.
Wow. Fantastic.
It's going to be lots of fun.
All right.
Thanks, Tolec.
Dan, thank you. Yeah.
And
I'm glad you're
great to talk to Maree and David as well. I can't wait to meet you guys.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great day. For Tolec and Andromeda, for the Andromeda Council. Thanks for listening. Take care.